Ghana has assumed the status of the biggest mining country, gold mining country in Africa. But to what benefit? The state is taking a lot of steps to ensure that mining is responsible, is sustainable, and does not destroy the environment. We have over a dozen laws to regulate the sector, and yet our forest reserves, our water bodies are devastated. Galamsey. But in this trouble, we find a few that are in doing very responsible mining. They are licensed and they are certified. Will licensing and certification be the path to responsible mining in Ghana? That's the question we're asking this afternoon on The Law. It's your legal light, it is your health law. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanini. We'll be right back with my guest.
As you can see right behind me, residents of Akomfra in the Ashanti region are shocked at the revelations of this morning's raid led by the Minerals Development Fund. The Minerals Development Fund, together with security agencies, in the early hours of today, apprehended some foreign nationals who are believed to be part of the syndicate leading illegal mining operations within the forest reserve found within this community.
The community is fed up. And in fact, the communities are fed up. They are fed up that they destroy the land, they destroy the water bodies, and at the end of the day, they're going to blame government. Because they want water, government has to provide. They want this, government has to provide. For these Chinese who say they don't even feel sorry for what they've done, they've destroyed our water bodies, they've done so much. We will also push to make sure that the law takes its course. But if they are going to be deported, it should not be before they pay for the restoration of offering.
In fact, let's hear from the horse's own mouth. Hello, how are you?
How are you?
I'm fine. Are you responsible for what we see here? You? Were you the one who did this?
No.
You're not the ones?
No.
Are you sure? No. So what are you doing here?
I was saying no English.
You're not the one who did this?
They say they don't understand English.
Pollution? No? Mining?
Luther.
So what's your name?
Luther.
Okay, but you are not the one who did this.
No.
You didn't do this?
No.
So what are you doing here?
No.
How did you come here?
No English. No
You
English.
don't speak English?
Yeah, no English.
Yeah.
No English.
You didn't come here?
No English.
But were you the one who did this? Were you the
No,
one
no city. No.
You're not the one who did
No
this?
city.
You're not the one who did
No.
this? So who did this?
No city.
You don't know?
No.
Okay. Obviously, these foreign nationals do not speak the language. Let's see if we can. Yeah, were you the one who did this?
No city.
Are you sure you're not the one?
No.
But you can see.
No.
Where's the machine?
Machine, no machine, no city.
Oh. So who did this?
No city.
Who did it?
Me.
You?
Me house yesterday come.
Oh, you came yesterday.
Yesterday come.
From where? Which country?
No city.
Which country did you come from? China?
China.
Oh. So who brought you here? How did you come here?
No English.
We're within the Jamura Forest Reserve of the Ashanti region. And as the name will have it, it is a forest reserve. And of all the things you'd expect to see in a forest reserve, obviously, will be animals and vegetation cover. But Joy News is now uncovering, guess what? A fuel station located in the heart of a forest reserve. And guess what it is doing? It is fueling all of these machinery and earth-moving equipment that you see in your shots here, ostensibly belonging to illegal miners who are digging deep into the heart of this forest reserve and destroying all that's left of it. And that's why we're here joining this task force by the Minerals Development Fund, led by its chairperson or executive, Hannah Louisa Bisu Kote, who's very unhappy about the activities of these illegal miners and saying that this should be the point where it all ends. We've been interacting with some persons as well who are part of this task force, finding out what the scope of this operation is and what the implications will be going forward. Les Ogan reporting for Joy News, Jamara Forest Reserve, Ashanti Region. Also.
So you find that state authority, people with the awesome powers of the state behind them, are visiting areas where irresponsible mining is going on, where destruction of our water bodies and forest reserves are going on, and regardless of the fact that they are backed with the awesome powers of the state, they are being refused, they are being resisted in the manner you just saw. So what exactly is going on? At the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences, they have been having a debate about making sure we are able to terminate galamsey or end galamsey and ensure responsible mining. This or last week, they revived their discussions. And one of the discussants making very insightful presentations was Ace Anan Ankoma. He had what you can find to be a simple solution to the myriad of problems there. Let's try and go through what he's proposing, and then I'll revert to my guest to look at the example, the good example of good, responsible mining. So he proposes what he calls mining oversights, mining oversight crisis and prosecutorial control. He is proposing that already right now the problem we have is that we have multiple agencies with overlapping mandate. It's not that we don't have the laws. We have the laws. We have multiple agencies with overlapping mandates. We have ministers who hold excessive power in licensing. It doesn't appear there is sufficient checks and balances in the licensing regime. Prosecutorial discretion, subject to political control, since Attorney General is a cabinet minister. The Attorney General sits in cabinet. He belongs to a party. If the people who are fished out are members of his party, what will he do? It's been suggested that Akonta Mining, as in Wuntumi's company, would have been prosecuted long ago, but for the fact that he was in the government. So here are Ace's, fixes that he suggests. He did a loaded paper, but this is what has been teased out of that paper. So mining oversight crisis and prosecutorial control. Here are some suggested solutions. One, he says, create a unified, constitutionally backed Natural Resources Commission. One body, multiple divisions, i.e. minerals, forestry, water, fisheries. This ends the duplication of agencies and increases transparency. Issue constitutional instrument to regulate operations. Allows ministers to focus only on policy, not licensing. That's number one. Number two, form a national prosecutions authority, separate from the Attorney General and Minister for Justice. Independent body with full criminal prosecutorial powers. That's what the National Prosecutions Authority will be. It will be free from executive control as it is not subject to cabinet, and it will be accountable only to the constitutions and courts. The Constitution and courts, mimicking independence of the judiciary. First of all, I'd like to get my guest and their views on these blueprints before we get into what they have been involved in this sector and what they have seen to work. Kweku Asare is lawyer at Asare at Law. He wears another hat, which we'll introduce that to you very shortly. Dr. Stephen Blessing Aka is Executive Director, Ghana Gold Expo Foundation. Gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Samson, and good afternoon.
Great. Has Ace Ankuma diagnosed the problem correctly? Multiple agencies with overlapping mandate, ministers holding excessive, power in licensing, prosecutorial discretion subject to political control since Attorney General is in cabinet, and proposing the two overarching sort of institutions. A unified, constitutionally backed Natural Resources Commission, where you have all the licensing divisions and whatever you call them under, and then you have an independent prosecutorial authority to give us a breathing space and some sanity.
Well, this is quite a difficult question for me, and you might conjecture why. The learned Ace Ankuma, as you well know, is our lecturer and senior at the bar. And I suppose that he proposes these, if you call it review of the current legal regime, because he looks at it from a perspective of a lawyer. Even though I sit here and you ask me this question as a lawyer, maybe I have a better perspective of the problem because I also sit in another capacity. If I'll be honest with you, I do not think that the problem, a menace of Galamsey, has much to do with the current legal regime. For me, it's a socio-economic problem that people have smartly tried to turn into a political problem. And so it has very little to do with what our current legal regime is. You and I know Ghana has one of the most comprehensive legal regime in almost every facet of the law. And our legal regime regarding minerals exploration in general is, for me, almost foolproof on paper. The problem is when it comes to operationalizing the law on the ground. Now, when you were going through these proposals or proposition, what kept running in my head is that when all of this have been set up, whichever prosecutorial authority, whichever entity is clothed with ultimate power, would have to be appointed by political authority. We should know that. That's the first step. Having been appointed by political authority, those institutions would have to work in tandem with other state institutions, like the police, like the military, and other agencies which are already in place. We will need a national will to solve the issue of Galamsey, pure and simple. I don't think that the issue of Galamsey is because there's any lacuna in our law or that our laws are inadequate. That's my honest opinion.
However, a major plank of the problem, as far as coordination, as far as finding a unified place to work from, has been properly diagnosed and the solution proffered. You agree?
Let me ask a question. What coordination is there to do when the law says you cannot mine in river bodies? When the law says if you are given a concession to mine and you have a license, you first of all have to go to the EPA, get an EPA permit. When you go to the EPA to get an EPA permit, you need to go with your work schedule, evacuation schedule, and all of those details. When the law says when you've acquired your EPA permit, come back to the Minerals Commission for it to inspect that you've gone through everything that is environmentally needed for you to do before the Minerals Commission now gives you an entry permit to go into your concession to mine. If somebody skips any of these steps or somebody does not go through any of these steps, the person has infracted the law, pure and simple. For me, he's no different from the armed robber. He's no different from the thief that goes into somebody's house to burgle. What more coordination do we need to bring this person to book?
Is there not a problem if this is what we have been operating over the years and the problem persists.
Right.
I think that's where we are. And at the Mining in Motion conference, which you participated and also you were part of the speakers at the panel.
Right.
Listening to the deputy minister in Ghana, listening to the representative from Liberia and elsewhere, getting a one-stop shop is part of the solution.
Well, it may be part of the solution, but I think that it will be a secondary solution, in my opinion.
Okay, let me go on Zoom now to speak to Dr. Blessing Aka. Thank you very much for making time to join us, sir.
Thank you very much.
Right. If you joined us earlier, I had just projected Asan Kume's propositions, diagnosis of part of the problem and propositions for a solution. Did you follow that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So what do you say? We need to create a unified, constitutionally backed Natural Resources Commission. It will be one body. All the multiple divisions will be in that place. The minerals, forestry, water, fisheries, all of them will be there. It will end the duplication of agencies and it will increase transparency. It will allow ministers to focus only on policy and not licensing. And then we'll form a National Prosecutions Authority, separate from the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, so it will be independent with full criminal prosecution, free from executive control, and be accountable to the Constitution.
Samson, thank you very much. I think Section 81 to 89 of the Minerals and Mining Act 2006, basically 703, specify the operations of the small-scale mining sector. And you are aware that in the previous government, they even went ahead to introduce a policy that was not an act, a policy called the Community Mining Program. If with what Ace is saying, I think I keep on saying that since Kwame Nkrumah days, we have been involved in the mining of gold, not in the trade of gold. So if you look specifically, you will see that the PMMC, which is now Gold Board, was specifically on marketing of precious metal. That means how they try to issue licenses for indigenous people to buy gold. Then in this government, which is led by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, decided to do what you just mentioned, which is the one-stop shop that promotes the trade of gold. Now, there's something that we keep on missing here, which is in the gold trade, there is what we have, the governance. The governance is where Ace is talking about. That falls under the formalization of minerals. For example, if you look at the licensing, which the Minerals Commission from many years has been in charge of that. And as I mentioned, the Section 81 to 99 will specifically gives you all the code of standards, and even how we need to mine the gold. Now, if you look at the governance aspect, we have Minerals Commission who used to issue licenses or the directive from the minister, which is the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources.
Right.
We have EPA, who is also who provide a permit to ensure that we are mining in a safe environment. Then we have the district and the others. But all these falls under the governance aspect of mining. What we haven't done too much is the industry requirement that allows us or allows third party to also play a major role in promoting responsible mining or tracing the gold or promoting legal gold instead of the illegal mining.
All right.
Because you see, what we need to understand is that there are specific industry requirements that need to be met. And even if you set up all this prosecution process and you are still unable to have the industry requirement that meet the international standard, will still be to square zero.
Okay.
Because the governance aspect of what we are discussing is how Minerals Commission, Gold Board are providing licensing.
Good point.
But
so let's on the back of this now go straight into the question of licensing and certification, or call it standards. What role do these play in ensuring responsible mining? And we are having this discussion on the back of the Mining in Motion conference, where it was discovered that there is really some entities, you call them the artisanal small-scale mining, that are actually being very responsible and not being as reckless and destructive and damaging as we have seen in this country. What is the role of licensing, certification, or standards in ensuring responsible mining?
Okay, thank you very much. So, you know, we have the licensing that I mentioned earlier, which falls under the governance aspect of the mining operations. Here, I'm not talking about large scale, I'm talking about the small scale mining sector, which Minerals Commission, together with the ministry, will do that. Now, for our interest here is not just about the mining, because there is a third party that needs to be involved. And the third party is where we look at the certifications. For some time, we have been providing the licensing as government of Ghana, issuing the license. What we haven't included is the certification that will support or even enforce the law to work, because the certification looks more on where the gold is coming from, and that falls with the refineries. So far, we haven't certified many refineries in Africa, with the exception of the one in South Africa. I don't want to mention it because I'm not marketing them. And luckily for us, we had like three refineries in Ghana, but where were the certification? One of them have been able to secure a certification, but since 2018 to now, that refinery was unable to work. So we need to also understand that if you provide a certification, that is where the standards comes in. Because I mean, something. Let's take a practical example at the UAE. The UAE is not mining gold. The UAE job has formed the standard based on the certification by the refineries, which allow the DMCC to work based on the standard and the industry requirement that allows them to buy. My brother Koku knows that if you have a mine in, let's say, Ghana, in my hometown in Zama, and a refinery want to come, and that refinery is going by the certification and the standard of maybe LBMA, RJC, RMR, what will happen is that they need to come and do their DD. But in Ghana here, we don't have that. So there are a lot of responsible small-scale mining companies who are mining responsibly. Now, there is no certification there is no enforcement by the refinery to even trace or to work with the government of Ghana to ensure that the gold that I am buying it from this source. And because that certification is not in place, it turns out to become more political. So we don't know who is doing the right thing or who is not doing the right thing. I think what we need to understand clearly is that Gold Board has come to ensure part of the formalization, put on the side of the gold trade. Now, the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources need to take hold and ensure that it's either, as is mentioned, we are putting this legal prosecution in place, or we are coming to a clear understanding that licensing falls within the governance aspect of the Minerals and the Mining Act, which is there. Then we need to introduce a new program, just like how we did for the Gold Board. Introduce a new program whereby that body specifically look at the responsible sourcing program, so that if, for example, Gold Board is having gold, a miner is selling gold to Gold Board, and we are unclear where the gold is coming from, that body will be able to come out and say, based on the third party audit, based on the certification that have been given to us, based on the international standard or the industry requirement, this person is not mining responsibly.
Okay.
Because
Okay, so you hold on there. That is Dr. Blessing Aka, who is the, Chief Executive Officer of the Expo Foundation. Now, we want to use this opportunity, and as you know, he mentions, there are some who are doing the right things. What we want to look at is how we can encourage more to do the right things, because as they have all identified, the laws do exist in their dozens. Watch this.
In 2018, an audacious idea was born, envisioned by a young Ghanaian lawyer and entrepreneur to build a responsible small-scale gold mine of international repute. After 2 years of groundwork, Typhoon Greenfield Development Limited began operations on its Adanse Adumanu concession. From the outset, Typhoon positioned itself as a forward-thinking leader in Ghana's small-scale mining sector. Accordingly, in 2021, under the guidance of Development Gold International, Typhoon launched an ambitious in-house standardization program to bring its vision to life, aligning with best practices in governance, safe working conditions, and environmental protection. In partnership with TDI Sustainability, Typhoon developed an assurance criteria that met international standards, including the OECD, LBMA, SBGA, ILO, and World Bank resettlement frameworks. This commitment placed Typhoon in a league of its own. In 2022, upon the introduction of the Bank of Ghana, Typhoon passed a rigorous site assessment and was onboarded by MKS Pump, one of the world's most prestigious LBMA accredited refineries. It thus became the first and only small-scale mine in Ghana to be accredited on these international standards, whereof it enrolled on the Bank of Ghana's Domestic Gold Purchase Program, helping the central bank to build domestic reserves and access ethical markets. Beyond its core business, Typhoon has uplifted its host communities through impactful CSR initiatives, establishing royalty streams to local schools, construction of healthcare facilities, palaces, a community center, public sanitation infrastructure, and road rehabilitation. In 2022, in partnership with the Ashanti Green Initiative, Typhoon rehabilitated 180 acres of degraded land, planting 15,000 coconut trees, though sadly, 2/3 of it has been lost to renewed illegal mining. Today, history is being made as under the distinguished patronage of His Majesty Otumfuo Osei Tutu II and the Mining in Motion Initiative, Typhoon has minted Ghana's first ever good delivery green gold from MKS Pump and Rand refineries. A dream 7 years in the making. Typhoon Greenfield is not just mining gold. It is setting the gold standard for small-scale mining in Ghana.
Right. So that's the man here behind Typhoon. We are aware Gold Coast did, in November 2021, present the first billion bar, 99.99, to the government of Ghana to be souvenir for Ghana in the office of the president. And we also are aware that they did outdoor the hallmarked gold bar that has been produced and processed in the country. The certification and hallmarking was carried out, in a way that meets international standards. Question: how come Typhoon Greenfield is able to do it this way? complying with the laws in the manner you have done, and others are not able to do so?
Something for me, it's an interplay of two things. Willpower on the part of the entrepreneur, and then the brutal force of the law on the part of the regulator or government. If these two interplays are properly harnessed and we do not play games with words, there's no way we shouldn't be able to achieve this. And at the conference I said that it's an indictment on the citizenry of this country that typhoon is an exception rather than the norm. And I mean it in every single bit of that sentence. The laws are clear. We have only tried to follow the law. At a certain stage, maybe we became so fascinated with what we're doing that we went an extra mile to also make sure that we are compliant with certain international protocols which may not necessarily be in our law. But you see, the subject of galamsey is one that is at my heart because I come from an area where the land is rich of gold. I come from Formina, it's the capital of Adansi. And for over 300 years, our grandfathers have been mining gold. For people who are students of history, it was very common within the Ashanti traditional leadership structure that once in every while, stools which were prominent, the paramount chiefs would gather their entire household, travel miles away, find lands which are gold-bearing, stay there for years, mine to make heirlooms, jewelry, and all of that, maybe for 10 years. And in Ashanti parlance, that was called Batadi. So our chiefs in the past, it's not a white person who came to teach us how to mine. Our chiefs in the past were actually going on long sojourn to go mine and come back. These were treasures that we mined and kept. During those times, we didn't destroy our lands. And today that we're mining to sell out to others, we find it beneficial to destroy our lands in the process of mining. For me, that's why I keep on saying it has very little to do with the law. And
you're saying that it's not the licensing, the certification, standardization that compels you to do responsible mining as Typhoon,
right,
and to ensure that you are doing the reclamation that you have done, planting the coconut trees and all of that. It's not the law.
No. Something is not the law. Because, you see, 90%, in my opinion, of people who engage in galamsey are not licensed at all. They are not documented at all. So it's not as if somebody has gone for a license and knows that there are conditions about this license I shouldn't breach. That's why the person is... No. 90% of people who are doing illegal mining are not documented at all. And that's why I said it's a socio-economic problem. When you go into the community, so people like us who are sticking to the law or doing what is right, people may even find you offensive. So I said at the conference that one of our major difficulties, apart from being stigmatized as soon as you say you are doing mining, everybody looks at you. When you guys didn't find me in the court, oftentimes would I have phone calls from our colleagues who would say, oh, it was a serious stigma because from where I'm coming and for the things that I've done in life, my background and everything, it cut deep in my heart that people...
And I must confess, we had to literally pull you onto this platform because you like to do your things in the background.
Absolutely.
And not,
Something, the only reason why I'm sitting here is because, personally, this is a matter on my heart. Okay. Because I do not play in the media.
All right.
That is not my preserve. I'm a trained lawyer and entrepreneur, and I think the best way to grow as an entrepreneur in particular is to grow quietly. Okay. But I'm here because we have a national canker, and whenever I sit in my home watching people trying to find solutions to this, I see people are sitting in Accra and pretending to be resolving issues in the villages and in the bushes where they have no idea what is going on there. But I think that majority of the people, particularly those who make a lot of pronouncements and suggestions about how galamsey could be resolved in the media. A lot of, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them, when you hear them, you realize that they do not appreciate the problem.
But you have somewhat admitted that you are compelled by law to ensure that the standards, your practices conform to standards. Correct. So that what you do will be acceptable.
Correct.
How do we get this sort of ingrained and widespread so we don't have the problem we have at our hands now?
Okay, first and foremost, I think that we should have a concerted national will to do this. I don't think the problem in resolving galamsey, one, is not a political problem. You see, I've lived in this country all my life. There's never been a time I've been away for more than 1 month outside of this country before, even when I schooled outside sometimes, you see. So I understand this country. I think that for a better part of about 25 years coming, we as a people have conveniently dropped all of our morals. And gradually, criminals, in quote, I use that word advisedly, have found a very easy way to commit crime without being apprehended. Because I think people have discovered the fact that if you hide behind political colors and commit crime, you are likely to go scot-free. And it cuts across. So the issue of galamsey has largely been politicized, and I think it's been engineered by the criminals who are behind this, only so that they could be shielded. For me, galamsey is not a political issue. It is a socio-economic issue. Now, I've been questioned sometimes when we are quietly seek to fight galamsey. Where do you want these young men to go and eat? And I said, these young men can eat right in this industry because we have done it right. And I think it's not just Typhoon. Typhoon only went ahead to get these international certifications, and so it is convenient for us to be showcased. But there are others who are also doing small-scale mining who may not have these international certifications, but in my opinion, they are sensitive to how they hurt the environment.
Hold on there. You are saying quite a lot of controversial stuff, but you know they provoke our conscience to want to do the right things. That we have traditions, we had values, and we're doing this even before the advent of your excavators and everything else. Exactly. Why must we allow law to now be the compelling point for us to do the right thing? So, Dr. Stephen Aka, the point is, as you were speaking, I could tell that you do not make any excuses for the fact that licensing, certification, or regulation, you spoke about the governance part of it, they are a compeller for responsible mining. Did I get you right?
Yes, as Sam said, exactly. But I mean, what I wanted, Kweku is my very good. I mean, we are brothers. I'm also Kweku, but what I wanted Kweku to understand is that the morals and the tradition will not stop illegal mining. You understand? So this is where we now need to look at the best and the alternative solution to ending illegal mining in Ghana, and that's why I'm saying that. You could see all the news, how Gold Board is gradually increasing the outflow of gold that we have in Ghana, all because it's a program that was put in place from policy and now becomes an art. What we need to understand is that, as I mentioned, the governance has been something that we've been doing. And if the governance is weak, that is where a lot of illegal activities will continue. What I'm saying is that the whole small-scale mining program starts from mine to market. It does not just end at the mining. It's a mine to market process. So therefore, we have the regulation which falls under the governance, as I mentioned. We have the industrial requirement. For example, I was this afternoon when we were discussing, I mentioned to you that the first certification was done in 2021 together with the Ghana Standard Authority that gives the hallmarking standard to the Gold Coast refinery to be able to hallmark the gold. Now, when we came in, we realized that even Ghana as a country, though we are a member of the Commonwealth nations, we are not a member of the hallmarking charter. So if Ghana Standard Authority provides hallmark to Gold Coast, what are the standards? And I think then that was one Prof. Dodu. He was able to prove why we needed our own standard. And we presume that this is excellent idea because the gold leaves Ghana and the refinery. I'm happy that Kuku had a refinery that is refining the gold, MKS. MKS will never buy gold unless they have gone through the standards that allow that falls within the LBMA certification. Because there's a third party that is coming in to certify that where is the gold coming from. And if MKS is unable to prove, then it means the gold is not coming from a responsible source and it is declared as an illegal gold. So if the government of Ghana is going to work with this kind of, we don't need to call for anyone. We've learned all the best practices. When we came in 2020, the gold the gold reserves was 7.8 tons. We didn't go anywhere. We decided to build the domestic purchase program here by young guys among us, and today we are boasting of gold reserves. So the same way we have identified that one of the ways that can also help us prevent the illegal mining is to issue the certification for the refineries. We used to have more than four different refineries. How can they didn't work? Because they don't have certification, and therefore, even if when they refine the gold, the international bodies will not accept the gold, and therefore you can't even they can't work.
Where you sit as the executive director of the Ghana Gold Expo Foundation, what are you doing, and what must be done to ensure that there is this standardization, certification processes that compel responsible mining, and that this is widespread to help us curtail, the devastation and the wrongs?
Perfect. So two combinations. First one has to do with the responsible sourcing. I personally led this with the Central Bank of Ghana, and we had the support to develop the responsible sourcing policy for the central bank, because the central bank by the law are not allowed to buy gold. They can only hold or reserve gold. And for us to portray this to the international market, that falls under the World Gold Council program that central bank are allowed to buy gold. We needed to come in and initiate the responsible sourcing that defended them that yes, the central bank is also buying gold. Now, if you look at it clearly, you see that we don't have problem with the large-scale companies. Why? Because the large-scale companies are working presumably, and in quote, based on their standard that has been approved. The small-scale mining sector, as I mentioned, do not have the responsible sourcing program in place. The only way we can have that in place has to do with two bodies. It's either the Gold Board is establishing that we are in touch with the Gold Board already, or the Gold Board issues that program to the refineries in Ghana. So what happens is that maybe Gold Board is a government entity. So other people can hide that the government. But the refinery is a private entity. The third party which is coming in to audit the gold, when he comes and sees that there's an iota of illegality in the process, there is no way he will favor them. You understand? But if you don't have that in place, we will always hide under the governance, because how do we issue licenses? Who goes there to check? But MKS came all the way to Adanse to go and know how the gold was responsibly sourced. But most of our people will not go and check. So I think what we need to include is that we have proposed to the government the responsible sourcing program has to be in place. Not just that, we need to also establish the regulated task force so that we can include the legal aspect that ACE has recommended. Because now we didn't have tribunals. Gold Board has proposed tribunal.
That's right.
We need to bring that back to the task force.
Thank
so
you.
that if I, as a third party, as a foundation, when I come and by standard, I look at, I see that you are not going by the law or by the standard of responsible sourcing. What do? I have to, in the next 3 months, I have to put the report there.
Okay.
And this report goes into the Gold Board data.
Thank
and
you.
Gold Board is able to provide that.
Thank you. Now, he uses a phrase, from mining to market. Right. So you have standards to meet, without which you can't penetrate the market and be as useful. So what do you think are the militating factors against that kind of thinking, like you do at Typhoon, that is mine to market? So the market is in mind. I have to meet a particular standard. What are the things that militate against that?
You see something? We come from a certain background. So whether you like it or not, our approach to things, given your education, exposure, family background, and everything, will be different. And that's why I keep on saying we need to look at this matter holistically, okay? You are, first of all, before you can mine as a small-scale miner, you should apply for a minerals license, okay? For me, that is the fundamental of the problem. And I've said to you, about 90% of the people who are mining don't have the license. Question is that
they don't even know they exist.
Precisely.
The regulators don't know they exist.
The regulators don't even know they exist.
Right.
You understand me?
We discovered a whole town.
I saw the video.
Newly created.
I saw the video.
Of how many thousands?
Precisely.
Actually.
You see, so if the standards, eligibility to the market, good sourcing market and all of it, for me, is secondary and maybe even tertiary. We need to solve the problem fundamentally. How do we stop people from going out to mine even without being licensed? Somebody also goes to take the license. He can't go through the processes of going to the EPA to pass the standards of the EPA so that he can come back to the Minerals Commission and get his entry permit. How do we make sure that everybody who has a license to mine is also passing the EPA test and coming back to get the work permit from the Minerals Commission and all of that? And I think that we're jumping the gun. We need fundamentally to get the steps right. And the way to get the steps right is enforcement. For me, maybe one of the things that I found laudable in the new propositions is to, for instance, have a tribunal for prosecution. If we have firm tribunals for prosecution, because you and I know the laws are clear. If we have firm tribunals for prosecution, that would basically deal with the fundamentals of the problem. And then maybe within the next couple of months to a year, maybe 2 years, everybody who will be in the space of small-scale mining will be at least documented. When we have achieved this milestone is when we now begin to push the threshold notches up. So you have a license, you have your EPA permit, you have your entry permit. But maybe when we come to your mining environment, you are discharging into water bodies. You know, we cannot, those issues cannot be resolved overnight. It will take time. So once we have documented everybody, have everybody in a pool, then we can begin to think of how to tighten up the bolt to make sure that everybody is staying compliant. If we start talking about, and you see, we've gone through all the process from A to Z, so I appreciate it. But you cannot go talking to somebody about accessing market who is not even documented. Does the person care? And my brother Akawood is aware that a bulk of the minerals that are mined in this country are smuggled out. So if you're talking about, we are documented, we have signed on to these standards, and so we know when we produce our gold, we need to find the responsible market to deliver it to. But the person who is not even documented, does he care about a refinery? No. Because he is able to discharge it onto the black market. And then the black market, again, my brother knows that particularly, and I'm sorry to say this, but that's the truth, in the Middle East, nobody cares about where the gold is coming from. Gold is going to India without anybody caring about. So you see, we are deceiving ourselves when we sit here and say, oh, we need to get people to get to ethical markets. At certain times in the year, premiums that are paid on gold from India far outweighs the premiums that are being paid by the West, which is essentially structured and responsible. So it even makes more sense for you see, so we should not, the problem, like I said, is complex.
Okay.
But the bottom line is that we should get everybody mining in a pool of documentation.
Great, great. And Dr. Aka, you acknowledge this point, and we have spoken to you before on the gold board approach. And Koku just mentions the fact about the tribunals, which you also mentioned, which is a very good thing. But is there a way to sort of compel those at the very least, lowest, to also not be able to have a market unless they are meeting standards as the law requires?
Yes. So I think it still falls under the issue. We supporting the local refineries here to be able to do that, because you see, I'm happy that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama policy, he mentioned that the community mining program will be converted into a cooperative program. So, for example, we know, and myself and Koku, we are not just theory. We are all be on the site. We are always ensuring that the right thing is done. But he knows that these guys are not doing the right thing. Now, how do we overcome? To overcome it is to ensure that it's either the refinery who is buying the gold. Because, as I mentioned, for so many years, we have been able to fight this level of illegality, all because, as you mentioned, we are always hiding behind the political power. The refineries that are coming to work, or these cooperative small-scale trading companies, will by all means have third-party auditors that will come and audit their gold. So if you have, let's say, refinery A, who go to set up in Takwa, and is the one buying the gold from these small petty centers, he's aware that at the end of the day, he has to account for where the gold is coming from. You understand? So this is where it brings the game changer. And Kweku knows that irrespective of whether we are talking about the licensing certification, MKS has a third-party force that always wants him to produce reports at every end of the month or every 3 months.
Okay.
So Minerals Commission, the Gold Board, the Ministry of Lands, and the Minerals Income
I was hoping I could pick a call or two. Yes, so my audience is, as you know, we do every week. Oh, I'm sorry, my production says we can't pick a call. I was hoping we could pick a call and get to hear from some of the guys very down there to share the ideas about whether or not the absence or lack of the laws militate against their capacity to bring the quality, to look to the quality that would have forced them to also be responsible. Yes, what did you want to say?
Yes, Samson. I said, we have the Minerals Income Investment Fund.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Who sits in Ghana. Minerals Income Investment Fund needs to work hand in hand with the Gold Board. Why? They are the investment arm of the government under the Ministry of Finance. Minerals Income Investment Fund, I am aware that they proposed a program that is to do exploration program and ensure that if the results are good, they could reinvest. We need to find a way for the Minerals Income Investment Fund work hand in hand with the Gold Board to invest with these small-scale miners. Because these small-scale miners, as we mentioned, if indeed they are doing galamsey as proposed by everybody, what are we doing to support them?
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Aka. Now, our time is up. Final words from you. And once again, things I'm hearing seem to drive me back to the proposals by Asa Nkrumah. I want to roll it back again, where the issue of simplification of the process is an encourager.
It is. To be honest, Samson, it is, because most of the people in this industry do not have the benefit of higher education. And so putting in proposals to get the licensing, the processes you need to go through to get your EPA permit, coming back to get your entry permit, and then your periodic regulatory obligations in terms of reporting and all of that, sometimes could be onerous. And even for people like us who have the benefit of higher education, sometimes it is a bit difficult. So if we talk about simplification of the process, I agree with it. But I still hold the ground, something that the matter is that of enforcement, nothing short of that. Because I think the law is adequate. We could make it better. But you see, it's like raising a kid. You start by breastfeeding the kid. When the kid of breast milk goes to these baby foods and all of that, we cannot sit here today and say that we're jumping to Z. I say, let us put everybody who is interested in mining in a bracket, i.e. get everybody documented. You see, when you do not have the pool you are dealing with, how do you even enforce? So that's the fundamental.
Right.
And then again, for the
apart
people...
from the problem of enforcement,
right,
the laws also have higher sanctions. We have reviewed the law over and again,
right,
particularly in 2019, 2021. I remember President Akufo-Addo saying that we couldn't trust some of the judges to dish out the sanctions. So we elevated all the sanctions, 25 years imprisonment, hefty amounts.
Right. Samson, there was something controversial I didn't want to say here, but let me say it nonetheless.
In 30 seconds, we are
when
done.
it comes to enforcement, okay, there are two people, if you hold accountable, galamsey will stop within a matter of months.
Tell us.
Local chiefs and district chief executives. They are there and they are responsible. If we are holding these people, you see, let me tell you something. We have litigations in court going on for years on boundary disputes between two chiefs. You're a lawyer, you've seen this. So chiefs go to sit in court litigating over years on boundary disputes. And people get on lands to mine illegally, and you don't find... and I'm saying local chiefs.
All right.
You see, the traditional local chiefs.
Right.
And DCEs are the people, if we are...
Thank you. I think that those have been also identified,
right,
that they are culprits and must be dealt with.
Right.
We have been dealing with licensing, certification for responsible mining at the Mining in Motion conference here in Accra earlier in the week, attended by President Mahama, attended by Otumfuo Osei-Tutu, the second himself, and various other stakeholders. We discovered that some people or some entities are involved in very responsible mining. And we find that if they are being held to proper standardization, standards, licensing and certification as proposed by the laws, we will get better. My guests have been Kweku Asare, who is a lawyer at Asare at Law, and also the man behind Typhoon Green Fields. Dr. Stephen Blessing Aka is Executive Director, Ghana Gold Expo Foundation. Gentlemen, thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
This has been The Law. It's your legal light. It is your help law. We hope we have helped you. Have a good afternoon.